Good evening, thanks for coming back to my channel. I'm shooting this video in response to a question on a previous video that I did about what kit you need in your marathon bag. And that question came from Cara. It was about using carbohydrate gels in marathon races. And what Cara was asking is, how should you use carbohydrate gels in a marathon? When should you take them? How many should you take? And there's different brands of gel that you can get on the market. I've got a couple here. You've got High Five, Energy Gel, Science in Sport, SIS. There's loads of other brands out there. They all do the same sort of thing where you can take on board carbohydrates during the race. So when should you do it and how many should you take? Now the timing of this question is actually perfect because this links into nutrition as well, and I've just been on an all-inclusive holiday where I've eaten way too much food and drank too much, and my nutrition's been rubbish. So it's good for me to talk about this now and hopefully refocus my own nutrition and help some of you guys out with some of yours. I will say though, I'm not a nutritional expert of any degree or anything like that. I'm just a guy who runs a lot, and this is what I've learned in my experiences in running. So before you actually consider how many of these things you should be taking in a race, you've got to think about how are you going to use them in training. If you read the packets of some of these gels, they say some ridiculous things on them about how many you should take. 1 gel every 20 minutes. I mean, that's ridiculous. If you're running a 3-hour marathon, you're apparently then supposed to be taking 9 gels during the marathon. These are made up predominantly of sugar, and if you're just dumping sugar straight into your stomach, it can often upset your stomach and make you quite unwell, and you obviously got to go on the toilet. So if that happens in the middle of your marathon, then you've ruined it. So taking as many as they say on these packets is just ridiculous in my opinion. If you think about, where is that information coming from? It's coming from these people who make this gel, and their objective is to sell you as many of these gels as possible. And they say that it's based on research that's been carried out, but when you look into it, who funded and paid for that research? It's probably the people who make these products. And the whole point of that research is to tell you as the consumer that you need tons and tons of these gels, and you'll be training with them for months and months in the build up to your marathon, using several a week, and just need to keep buying them and buying them. So actually this use 1 every 20 minutes, I don't see that as valid nutritional information. I just see that as marketing to make you buy more. When I ran my first marathon, I used these gels. I think I was using the Lucozade Sport ones at the time because the London Marathon was the marathon I was doing. That was the brand of gel that was going to be available on the course. So taking the advice from the London Marathon magazine, yeah, obviously I needed these gels, and I went out and bought boxes of the things and I was using them. What I was doing is going out on my long training runs, I was taking on gels, and I felt that I was performing okay within the runs, but what I did not realise is I was then allowing my body to become dependent on these gels, and then if I tried running any great distance without them, I was unable to do it efficiently because my body was relying on me having this intake of sugar every so often. When it wasn't getting it, it couldn't cope. So I use this really crude analogy of dual fuel cars that exist, where you've got petrol and you've got electricity as the two fuel sources. If you imagine your body's like that, and your petrol is your carbohydrates, and then your fats within your body are like the electric battery on a car. So if you put in petrol into a car, that's the most powerful kind of fuel that car can have, and it's going to make the car go really fast and quick. That's a bit like carbohydrates is to your body. You eat carbohydrates all the time. It's a really good fuel that your body can utilise for good energy. So if you're going to be doing fast speed workouts, you need carbohydrates because you can't perform in those workouts without that kind of fuel. But those workouts are about speed, and carbohydrate, like the petrol, is for speed. If you then go on to the analogy of the car with the battery and the electricity, you're not going to be able to be doing hundreds of miles an hour on an electric battery, but you will be able to go a long distance over a steadier pace. And that's a bit like the fats in your body. They can do that. Your fats are a really good fuel source for doing long distance endurance. The trouble is, a bit like the car, you cannot really have both of those fuels operating at their most efficient level at the same time. It's kind of one or the other. If you are on petrol all the time, your body is not learning how to use the fats. If you go back to the analogy of the car, if you stood a car for 2 years, never used it, and then you try to start the car and go for a drive, you might have a few problems. It might cough and splutter and struggle to get going, and and then eventually it will get going, but it's not really going to be running that well because it's so unused. That's quite like your fat burning system in your body. So what you're then doing is if you're using gels, you're pouring all this sugar into your body, you're using the carbohydrates, and therefore you're not using the fats. Your body is always going to favour using carbohydrates if they're available to it. If you've eaten carbohydrates, you've had gels, then yes, your body will use those. It'll become dependent on those, and the fat system will be redundant. When it's actually needed, it's not going to function. When you're in a marathon, even if you carb load really well all the way for a couple of weeks before the marathon, you pack as much carbohydrate into your body, you have a massive dinner, good breakfast, and you go out, you can only store on your body enough carbohydrate to get you most of the way there, maybe 20 miles ish, but somewhere around that mark you're going to run out of fuel, run out of carbohydrates. And that's what the wall is in a marathon. You hit the wall because your body's dependent on those carbohydrates, and they're not there now, they've all used up. And this is where these manufacturers will tell you need these gels, because you can't store all the carbohydrate in your body. You need more of it on the go to top it up as you go. But by doing that in your training all the time, these become like a crutch that you lean on, and if they're not there, you're going to fall over. Undoubtedly what happens in your marathon is it's a big exciting day, it's an absolute buzz, it's your adrenaline's going to be right up here. You're going to probably go off quicker than you've ever done in training. You don't mean to do it, you just find yourself doing it, and all of a sudden later down the road you're going to be out of carbohydrates, and you may have taken some of these, but you'll probably still hit the wall because you've gone quicker than you've practiced. And when that happens, there's not really much coming back from that. The only way to come back is to stop, walk, rest, take on fuel, take on liquids, allow your body time to recover, and then maybe you can get past it and get going again. But by that time you've been walking 20 minutes or something, your marathon time, your goal time has gone out of the window, and it's no good. And you can't afford to hit the wall in your marathon, because that way you're not going to achieve what you wanted. So to get round this, what you've got to do is sort out all of these problems hitting the wall in your training months before the marathon even starts. And the way I did it, when I ran my personal best of 3 hours 3 minutes 57 seconds, which is my BQ and also my good for age for London, which I was really pleased with, the way I'd done that is followed advice from the internet about becoming a fat adapted athlete. So Google that, fat adapted athlete, it will help you out with this. But what I basically did was I'd eat my dinner of an evening, I'd have carbohydrates in there, I'd have proteins, and I'd have a good meal. So I probably would eat my dinner maybe 6 or 7 o'clock around that time, and then I would sleep, and then I would be getting up about 6 or 7 in the morning to go on my long run. I would not eat any breakfast, I would just get up and go on this run. So you're then in a partially fasted state where you haven't eaten for several hours. You go out on your long run, it would start the same as any other run, because you're burning off the carbohydrates that you've still got on board from your food the day before. But there'll come a point in that training run where those carbohydrates run out, and the first time you do this, God, I felt terrible. I was slowing down quite a lot. I'd run a distance that when I was using these I could have run, and I felt that this is mental, because I'm trying this no carbohydrate thing, and actually I just feel worse, I'm going slower, this can't be good. But actually it is in the long run, because what you've done is you've hit the wall in training. So maybe, I don't know, that might happen to you at 8 miles or 10 miles or 12 miles, who knows, but whenever that point comes for you, it will come in that training run. So you feel terrible, but you get through the run, you limp it in, and you've done your long run. Straight away then you need to eat within 20 minutes of finishing that run. You need to eat protein especially, because it's that first 20 minutes after a long training run, your body is reaching out and craving for any bit of food that's available to it to start to repair itself. And science says that in that first 20-minute window is the best time for your body to start recovering. So if you eat there and then, brilliant, that's going to be the best thing you can do. And then rest. And obviously you're going to feel a bit bad because you've absolutely depleted your body of carbohydrates. Then you're going to repeat this process the next week on your next long run. And what you might find is, say it was 10 miles for you on week 1 where you hit that wall, it might be 11 the week after. 3rd week, repeat the process, you might get to 12. 4th week, you might get to 13. But over the weeks, you will find that you can run longer without hitting that wall, without using these. So over a progression of weeks, you're going to get yourself to a point where you're adapting to burn fats. That's the whole fat adapted phrase, that's where it comes from. You're adapting your body, you're training your body to use the fats. Your body will become more and more efficient at doing that the more you practice it. And when you get to your marathon, down the line, you will be ready to go. You'll be used to doing these massive long runs without any breakfast and without any gels on the go. And trust me, this will work, your body will adapt. But of course, on the day of your marathon, you're not going to just starve yourself of breakfast, and you obviously want to be performing tip top on marathon day. So then you do carb loads, you do have a good dinner, you do have a good breakfast, you completely fuel your body with carbohydrates, and then you go out on the marathon and you start your run. Now you've become used to doing this without breakfast, and now you've had breakfast, so this isn't something your body's leaning on and relying on as a crutch. This is actually a massive bonus your body doesn't normally have. It's like a boost for it, so you're going to go out and perform probably better than you do in your training runs. I then also did use gels in the race, but again, these are now not some crutch that I'm dependent on and leaning on. These are a massive boost. These are something I'm not used to having, and all of a sudden, wow, I've got all this energy, you feel great, and it's going to carry you through. And when I got to the Mall in London to finish that London Marathon, I was feeling strong. I was able to put in a sprint finish, and I ran my sub 305, which is what I wanted. I got my good for age or Boston qualifier. And for the last year and then the 2017 London Marathon, I've been in on a good for age place. But then in contrast, 6 months after that good marathon, I ran the Chester Marathon. And to be honest, I got a bit complacent and lazy with my eating regime, and on reflection, I didn't really follow what I was doing for London. I suppose I got a bit cocky, thinking, it'd be easy, I'll just go out there and do it again, and anyway, it just didn't work because I hadn't prepared in the same way. I didn't get out what I got from London, and I think I ran somewhere around 3:20 on that marathon, which I was still quite happy with, but obviously it wasn't anywhere close to what I'd done at London. And for me, it was a good contrast between following a proper, trying to not use too many carbohydrates in training, and then not following that plan properly. There was a massive difference in time. So this is, again, just from my experience as a runner, it worked for me, and I followed online advice, and I think it could work for you, Cara, and it could probably work for anyone else that wants to follow this. So I hope that's answered your question, Cara, and I hope this information's been useful. Definitely do some more research online about what I'm talking about here, because certainly the science behind all this will be explained better than I can explain it. I'm not a scientist, but I hope it's been useful. Let me know what marathon you're doing. Let me know how you get on after you've done it. I'd love to hear about that, and if you do this, what I'm talking about, and if it's worked or if it hasn't worked, obviously comment below. Anyone that watches this, please do the same. I think if we all share experiences about our marathons, we can all help each other improve. I often make videos on this channel which are about races that I go to. I take my GoPro round, I film the race, I try and give you a flavour for each race that I do, so you might look at that race and think, hey, I want to do that one, or no, I don't fancy that one. And I often do talk to camera pieces like this just about advice and training and nutrition and whatever comes up, really. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the like button on this video if you liked it. That really helps out make this video more visible online to other runners. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.